Good morning. Welcome to St. Paul's United Methodist Church. I'm reading today from the second chapter of the book of Acts, beginning at the 22nd verse. This is Peter speaking. Fellow Israelites, listen carefully to these words. Jesus the Nazarene, a man thoroughly accredited by God to you, the miracles and wonders and signs that God did through him are common knowledge. This Jesus, following the deliberate and well thought out plan of God, was betrayed by men who took the law into their own hands, was handed over to you and to the Romans, who nailed him to a cross and killed him. But God untied the death ropes and raised him up. Death was no match for him. David said it all. I saw God before me for all time. Nothing can shake me. He's right by my side. I'm glad from the inside out, ecstatic. I pitched my tent in the land of hope. I know you'll never dump me in Hades. I'll never even smell the stench of death. You've got my feet on the life path, with your face shining sun joy all around. What can we say about this time that we find ourselves in? I marveled this past week that despite the thousands and thousands that have died as a result of the virus, despite the overwhelming evidence, despite common sense, there are those, just down here in Denver today, who will be protesting, calling this a hoax, calling this overblown. Nothing is going to get through to them because their mind is already made up and the facts don't matter. The reason I mention that is because when Peter stood before the assembly that day and offered this testimony, this witness about what Jesus had done, about who he was, he pointed out, this is common knowledge. Everyone here knows what happened. Some of you were even there. Some of you heard Jesus talking in the temple. Some were there when he was crucified. So the witnesses are well established. So I want you to think this morning, this Jesus. Why are we spending time talking about him? Now, before you start to question my sanity here, there's been a lot of books written over the centuries. There have been letters written, poems and fables and myths and campfire stories have been shared about this or that God or this or that philosophical understanding. But that's not what we follow. That's not what we believe. So with everything out there, what is it about this story that connects with you? Now, this Sunday is in some traditions called Bright Sunday or Holy Humor Sunday. And the reason is because the gospel lesson associated with today is the very familiar story about Thomas. You know how it goes. Thomas wasn't there the first time Jesus appeared in the upper room following his resurrection. And when Thomas came back, the others told him that Jesus is alive. And Thomas said, unless I see him and touch him, I won't believe. And so the reason it's called Holy Humor Sunday is because this is a crazy story. This story that says to us, everything you think you know, set it aside, because God has something new to tell you. So, what is it? What is it that calls you and says, today, I need to get up. I need to gather with my fellow believers. And I need to share the story. Because, well, right now, I'm at the parsonage, and I'm looking across the street at the church building. And it's empty. No one there. And I wonder, why are you here? Why are you listening to this? Why are you participating in a worship style that, 2 months ago, I wouldn't have even given second thought. But here we are. We're telling the old story in a new way. And we're doing it because it is true. It connects with us. And it sounds as crazy to the people passing by as it did to those first hearers of Peter's words. There's something about it that says to you, not only is this account believable, not only is this a summation or an understanding of God's work in the world, not only is it from ancient times, but it is for our time as well. And see, it allows us to make sense of what's happening in the world. Not as an escape from it, because we see what happens. Peter and the others, they were there. They weren't hiding from the world. They were in the world. And it would cost most of them their lives. Everything they thought they knew, fisherman, tax collector, farmer, their way of life was changed dramatically and permanently because they saw in Jesus the salvation, the return of God's people to God. Our world is different than it was at the beginning of this year. I couldn't have imagined how this last month and a half has turned out. But like the early disciples, we adapt. We adapt the gospel to our time. Now, hear me now. I'm not saying that we make it to fit us. Nor am I saying we need to fit some preconceived mold of what a follower of Jesus is supposed to be. But we're doing church, we're being church in a different way. Because this is the time that we have. Peter and the others were people of their time, and they shared the gospel in a way that was relevant and meaningful for their audience. So as you're going through another day of social distancing, as you're pondering how to make sense of the world, I want you to consider that this is the moment that all of your life experiences have brought you to this point. Everything that you've done, all the people that you've met along the way, all of the books that you've read, all the experiences and relationships you've shared. Now, with all that you have and all that you are, in what way will you share the gospel? Might pick up a phone, might write a letter, might send an email, a text. You might even do Facebook Live. However you do it, know that you are doing something that is outlandish and crazy. You believe. Not because of what you can get out of it, not because of a building or a style. You believe because God speaks to your heart in a way that only you can understand. But now you can be the voice of God to share the love, of Jesus in a way that will make sense to someone who needs to know that you care about them before they can know that God cares about them. You could be the one who says, it's going to be okay. We will get through this. I'll be here with you. A certain distance away, but I'll be here with you. And when this is done, and when we can come together, it'll be the same story. It'll be the same people, perhaps. It's always going to be the same God. This is an amazing story. And it's not just what Peter and the others did. It's what we're doing. It's our time to share and to be the church in a way that's going to excite the world. And when all this is done, and people realize that you never gave up. You were never discouraged to the point of quitting. It's going to be okay. It's crazy, but I believe it. Amen.